Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.
Welcome to St. Louis on the Air. I'm Sarah Fenske. Yesterday, Congressman William Lacy Clay Jr. stood on the floor of the House and gave a dire warning.
President Trump's incoherent strategy has brought us to the brink of another disastrous war in the Mideast. I have seen this madness before. In 2002, I stood here to oppose the use of force in Iraq because I knew that tragic war was based on a lie.
And Congressman Clay is joining us by phone today to talk about everything that's going on in Washington and, some local stuff, too. So, Congressman Clay, welcome to the show.
Hey, Sarah, thanks for having me on St. Louis on the Air.
Now, you had some very strong words yesterday on the House floor. Are you worried that we're on the brink of another catastrophe in the Middle East?
If we don't rein in this president's recklessness, we will be. We will commit young men and women to a war zone in the Middle East, and the results will be a catastrophe. And I've seen this before, and really, apparently, no one in this president's family has ever served in the military or gone to war. Apparently, so it probably doesn't faze him, or he hasn't realize what the damage will be to Americans in a war zone, and it's so cavalier, and it's time for us in Congress to check this president.
How does the mood there and what's going on in the world compare, in your opinion, to how things felt in the lead up to the U.S. invasion of Iraq under President George W. Bush?
Some of it is similar. 2 days ago, I attended the classified briefing, and I can tell you that there was nothing resembling a ticking time bomb that would have qualified as an imminent threat. And killing General Soleimani was a choice with a political purpose. And, of course, he was a terrorist with lots of blood on his hands, but we could have taken him out at any time during the last 20 years. President Bush didn't do that. President Obama didn't do that. Israel, which has suffered from Iranian aggression and terrorism for decades, didn't do it either. So why did the president do it last week? And we need to ask that question.
What's your theory? If they could have done this at any point in the last couple decades, why do you think he chose now?
I think for this president, it was more about politics and ego instead of national security. And I don't think we have seen the last of this kind of behavior either.
Do you think it was a political reaction to the fact that he's been impeached and now they're hoping to remove him?
Oh, for certain. I think that that some of it has to do with how he distracts the American public from the issue of impeachment. I'm sure that that's weighing on him heavily. That he is only the third president in our history to go down impeached, and that's on his record, and that'll be an asterisk when the history books record his tenure.
And so you think he's trying to just change the subject?
Of course, and let's look at his behavior. A tweet does not equal congressional notification. The president has zero legal authorization to launch an attack against Iran, and he had better come to Congress first, or he will be violating his oath of office and the Constitution again.
So that's the subject of the resolution that you were speaking in favor of when we played that audio clip earlier in the show. And I know the House has now passed that. But even if the Senate also approves it, which is a big if, would this resolution really change anything when we've got a president who, let's face it, isn't really listening to leaders in either party?
Well, I would think so, especially if the Senate goes on record and tells and tells this president, look, we don't give you authority to just willy nilly go around the world blowing people up and killing people. In 2002, I opposed the AUMF to invade Iraq because I knew that Bush and Cheney were lying to us. And history appears to be repeating itself, and I'm going to do all I can to stop this war against Iran. And besides the War Powers resolution, I'm also co-sponsoring a bill by my friend and fellow Progressive Caucus member, Congressman Ro Khanna, which would prohibit any funding for offensive military action in or against Iran. And also there's another bill authored by my CBC colleague, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, that would repeal the authorization for use of military force from 2002. And I strongly oppose it then, and I strongly oppose that 2002 authorization now.
So your big problem here is the president is someone that you have absolutely no faith in. I think it's fair to say. Do you think there's any chance he's going to get removed from office and not just impeached?
Probably not. But I think in the as far as impeachment is concerned, the president violated his oath of office. He broke the law. He tried to cover it up, and then he got caught. And I fully support Speaker Pelosi's demand that Leader McConnell do his duty to provide a fair trial in the Senate with witnesses and documents. Now, apparently, she's going to send over those articles of impeachment early next week. But I really don't understand why the Republicans are still trying to help perpetuate this cover-up. If the president did nothing wrong, then let the witnesses testify, and that includes John Bolton. For months over here in the House, the Republicans have been screaming that none of the witnesses who testified at the House impeachment hearings had direct knowledge of what the president did and why. Well, Ambassador Bolton was literally in the room when all of this happened. And I think the American people deserve to hear what he has to say.
Yeah, he's certainly no darling of the progressives. If he comes out and, it would be just very interesting to hear what he has to say, no matter what your perspective on this is.
Right. And I'll give you another caveat. And if Mitch McConnell won't do his job and call John Bolton in to testify, then maybe Chairman Schiff can help him out on the House side by inviting Ambassador Bolton to testify in a public hearing in the House Intelligence Committee.
So the House could still be discussing these issues, even though you already have taken that vote to impeach.
Oh, for sure. And we are still exercising our oversight responsibilities as a member of the House Oversight Committee. We will continue to investigate this administration and to hold them accountable.
Okay. Now, on the political front, you were an early endorser of Kamala Harris. And now that she's out of the race, who would you like to see as your party's standard bearer against Trump?
I have not made a second choice. I think at this point we are coming up on Super Tuesday on March the 3rd, and then Missouri's primary March the 10th. And so I'm going to allow the Democratic voters in that primary to determine who they want out of the 1st Congressional District from Missouri. And the message in that to every Democratic voter is this: whoever we select to be our standard bearer, to be our party's nominee for President of the United States, we better get behind them, because we see what the results can be. And we see what the results were from 2016 because we didn't unite behind Hillary Clinton. This is who we get. We get 45, Donald Trump. And it's been a disaster for this country.
So I get you're going to support whoever the party's nominee ends up being, but do you know who you're going to personally vote for when that Missouri primary comes around? It's pretty soon now. You don't? You're still undecided.
No, I don't. I will listen to everybody, and I'll make a determination in the voting booth.
Okay, this is going to come down to the wire for you.
Yeah, I'll do it in the voting booth, and we'll see what the results are in the first CD and what the results are in the state of Missouri. Then that'll help guide me, too.
Okay. Well, so speaking of back in your district, you did surprise a lot of people when you came out against the city's exploration of airport privatization. It felt like a lot of leaders outside the city were kind of holding back, waiting to see how things would play out. What made you decide to speak out and call for a public vote on this issue all the way back in November?
Yeah, looking at, I decided to speak out and demand a public vote because the whole process smelled bad from the beginning, and I was skeptical about the ultimate public benefits that privatization might have produced. But I knew that the process was full of deception, a complete lack of transparency, and loads of conflicts of interest, including consultants who had a huge profit motive contingent on the outcome of the study. And I also knew this about Lambert Airport. As a kid, as a teenager, I worked at Lambert. And then as an adult, I worked at Lambert.
What were your jobs at the airport? I wasn't aware of this.
As a teenager, one of my summer jobs was shining shoes. My relatives have operated the shoe shine stand for over 50 years, and they're known as the best shoe shines in the country.
Wow, I did not know that. I'm going to think about that next time I'm getting my shoes shined. Like, these are probably your relatives running this operation.
This was in the 1970s, and so in the summer, all of the baseball teams would come through St. Louis, and I got to meet all of the Cardinals and the other stars and players from the visiting team. So it was a great opportunity to expose me.
And you've got this very long history at the airport. Do you think this airport is lagging compared to the other airports that I'm sure you're constantly in and out of?
Well, let me say that the citizens of the city of St. Louis own Lambert, and they deserve to help decide the airport's future. And I'm focused on making the airport better. Yes, in some areas they are lagging, and they need to. It's like our front door, just like the arch rails or our front door. The first impressions mean a lot, and so when people get off of those airplanes to come visit St. Louis, it needs to be a good impression that they get when they step foot in that airport. And they could also, do a better job of increasing flight options and bringing better domestic and international connections to better serve the flying public. And in fact, in 2019, I helped bring about $6 million in federal transportation grants to Lambert. And that federal investment goes to improve terminals, garages, runways, and security as well. And just another point, Sarah, about the privatization effort. During this process, the FAA raised serious questions about whether a private entity could have continued to receive those federal funds. And so I felt, too, that we could not afford to take that chance. And the mayor did the right thing. When she pulled the plug on a very flawed idea, and hopefully this concept will not come back.
Now, the Port Authority had issued an RFP to study regional governance of the airport, and they just suspended it. Just kind of a surprise decision, I think, that we're just hearing about today. Are you disappointed to see that study on hold or possibly even canceled?
Oh, not at all. I believe that this airport is owned by the citizens of the people of St. Louis. And so when you talk about regionalism, then why should St. Louis give up something for nothing? Mm-hmm. That's what I'm wondering. How is that regionalism when you're taking something and the city of St. Louis is not getting anything in exchange?
Mm-hmm. So you're skeptical of these ideas of, say, the county or other regional entities to try to get their hands on a piece of the airport?
Oh, very much so. I mean, look, if we're going to be real about regionalism, then let's look at having a regionalized school district that gets equal expenditure per child throughout the region. And so nobody's talking about that kind of regionalism. They're talking about taking an asset from a city that's owned it for over 70 years or longer.
I can see why, you're saying, as far as your constituents go, that's not going to help them.
No, I don't see how it helps.
We've got time for just one more question
Sure.
before we're going to have to let you go today. And that is, it came in actually from Twitter from a listener of ours, Derek. And he asks, how can you and Representative Cleaver work to get the Missouri State GOP to support St. Louis and Kansas City in spite of the urban and rural divide? Surely most federal investment in Missouri is in the St. Louis and Kansas City metros. Do you feel like that's a role that you and Representative Cleaver could help get them to the table, at least in terms of some of these issues where the state legislature and the city are at such loggerheads?
Well, I think at the federal level, we have already done that. When you think about my collaboration with Senator Blunt to ensure that St. Louis City was awarded the NGA and it not go to Illinois. We came together in a bipartisan fashion to save those 3,000 plus jobs and to bring a major federal investment to a part of a community that has not had an investment like that in my lifetime. And the same thing has happened with the city of Wellston, where Senator Blunt and I, again, collaborated, went to HUD and got the extension and got them to extend the time for St. Louis County to respond to the Wellston Housing Authority and to eventually ensure that residents of Wellston were treated fairly and were afforded the opportunity to be in safe, affordable housing.
So there are things that you're doing on a federal level. Do you feel like there's any role on the state level in terms of the Republican dominance here in the state and you guys controlling the federal purse strings?
I don't know if there's an opportunity there. I would love to explore that opportunity and figure out, hey, how do we collaborate with, say, the governor and the Democratic and Republican members of the State House and State Senate. I'm willing to explore those opportunities. I just don't know if there's any room to sit down and talk with those members of the state legislature.
Well, Congressman Lacy Clay, thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope we can have you back soon.
Oh, please invite me back anytime you like. And this has been quite a pleasure, Sarah. And for the first time, I'm coming on your show. I want to be invited back as a guest.
Well, we are definitely going to do that. So thank you so much. This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio, 90.7 KWMU.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.